So you've been following any of the Chance Englebert updates?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot more information other than they positively identified some items.
Yeah, I seen that the parents had positively ID'd some of the items there as Chance's. And then there was a press release by the Gering Police Department, and that they had sent the remains to, I believe, a forensic pathologist in Omaha.
Yeah, I think UNO, University of Omaha.
That could be.
Had to do with, yeah, I think so.
But I don't know if, I know there's some other agencies involved. I don't know if Gering is going to continue to keep the lead.
I hope not.
I was just gonna say that. I hope not.
I hope not. And the reason I hope they don't is because of, I guess you could say, some politics. And what I mean by that isn't in the sense of politics as, you know, left, right, or any of that stuff. But when there's the potential that maybe it was a homicide, and maybe some suspects could be local, even though your intent is to remain impartial, it's really hard to do.
Especially in a small town.
Especially in a small town. Even when you think that you're being impartial, I can guarantee there's things going on in the back of your head that's maybe preventing you from seeing certain things, or from really looking, you know, deep into maybe some areas you should. It's kind of hard to describe. I mean, I've been in circumstances like that, but it's a lot easier if you just turn it over to, whether it be State Patrol or an outside agency that doesn't have any of those ties or those connections to any local people. And so you don't feel like in the back of your head you're, I don't want to say judged, but, you know, there's not going to be any recourse.
Well, I just was looking up the population of Gering, Nebraska. This says like approximately 8,500 people. So that's pretty small.
It is pretty small.
And, you know, everybody knows everybody, and
there is still so much I find weird about this deal.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe this means nothing, but I cannot find anything on the in-laws, whether it be the names of the in-laws, first names I could find, no idea who the last names. And if you look at any other case, even if they're not suspects, let's say they're just family members, the family members are always easy to find. They're in reports, or they're in news stories, or doing interviews. And I still find it weird that there's nothing anywhere. Just for
what do you suppose we could find it from? The marriage certificate?
Tried that.
Really?
Yeah, Google it.
Yeah, Wyoming you have, because they were married in Wyoming, weren't they?
I don't know.
I tried looking something up to get records from Wyoming, and you had to pay for it, or you had to go in person to.
And it's not that necessarily I wanted to point any fingers. It was just I wanted details. I wanted more details than what would have been provided. And I thought, well, I'll just look them up myself. And there's nothing. And as a matter of fact, if you do this, Google Chance Englebert's wife's maiden name.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find.
And see what it says. And I know there might be some people listening and go, why the hell does that matter? You know, maybe she did or she didn't do it. But to me, it matters because any case that you ever look into, whether the family, you think they're involved or they're not, the names are always easy to find. This one just seems weird to me. And I don't know if it's because it's small, rural Nebraska or Wyoming Or I don't know what the reason is. I don't know. It just seemed odd. There's nothing.
Well, so far.
What is it? What does it say?
She's going to keep digging.
It says it has not been released publicly.
Oh, but that's not what pops up right away for me. It just shows some articles, so I'm...
Well, just have to keep waiting. I don't know.
Well, I know. And that's the thing is they got to open up an investigation now. And you think they're going to have to interview everybody. I mean, I know they supposedly did do some questioning, especially because he was missing. But even, some of the relatives wouldn't let the search parties go on their property. You think all of that's going to have to circle back around. And
that's why I think that I just wish that Gering would take a step back and maybe play a support role.
Yeah.
And maybe let somebody outside of that department, an outside agency, take a second look. I mean, it's certainly not going to hurt anything. And we're talking about...
No, and why not? Why not be transparent about everything and say...
And at the very least, if this turns out that Chance did walk to where his body was possibly discovered, and died of, maybe he slipped and fell off of the cliff, or maybe it was just the elements, they can say all the bases have been covered. But now, the way it's going is there's always going to be a question. If they rule it natural causes.
Yeah.
So, and that's my concern is with Gering handling it, just me personally, I'm going to think they overlook something. Maybe on accident, maybe on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes egos can get involved and depending on their chief of police or whoever's involved, whoever the head honcho is, depends on what their ego is like. And do they want to admit to, hey, okay, maybe we should have done something a little bit different? And maybe not. I mean, maybe there wasn't anything else they could have done. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe not. That's why I think at this point it's just,
yeah.
If you've already done a thorough investigation, or at least you think you have, then the only thing that would stop you from saying, maybe we should turn this over to the Nebraska State Patrol, maybe we should turn this over to somebody else. And ego is the only thing that's going to stop that.
Yep.
So, but anyways.
Yeah, so I'm still, kind of waiting to hear and get a little bit more information about that, but it's definitely not speedy.
No, it's not going to be speedy. But we got another one to talk about today that it's interesting and carried on for a long time.
Okay. I have to admit right off the bat, I did not know. I am a serial killer buff. I consider myself
a murderino. Isn't that what we called you?
A murderino.
A murderino.
I'm a connoisseur of serial killers. However, I realized I didn't know jack diddly about Dennis Rader.
I didn't either.
And, oh my God, this guy was sick.
I had heard of BTK. I knew there was murders. I knew he was a serial killer. I didn't really know any of the details. I didn't know what his MO was.
No, I know. He was a serial killer in the Midwest, and he was a church leader.
You know what's really goofy?
That's all I really knew. And I'm like, oh, okay. Didn't really know any details. I know all the details about Ted Bundy. I know Jeffrey Dahmer. I know all those details. Him? No. Now I do.
And it was a neighboring state.
Yeah, I know. What the hell? I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. So this thing started back in the 70s, like 1974 is what I have written down.
Yeah.
And it's Dennis Rader, who named himself the BTK. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with just BK, which is Burger King.
And BTK stands for?
Bind, torture, kill.
Yes, because that's what he liked to do.
That's what he liked to do. And like I said before, he named himself, and he had to tell the newspaper, law enforcement, that this is who I am. I'm BTK. I bind them, I torture them, I kill them.
Actually, in one of his letters, he said, or you can refer to me as, and he named a whole list of names that he could be referred to. And one of them was there was all kinds of them.
You know, I shouldn't laugh or make fun of it, but
Marissa, look up the list that Dennis Rader had for all of the names that he could be called.
did he put like boxes by him and he said just place a check?
I don't know. Yeah, he listed off he came up with a bunch of names and listed off a bunch of them that in that letter that you could call me this or you could call me that or you could call me this or you could call me that.
Oh, Christ.
Do you think that's where that song came from?
Could have been.
I'm glad you caught on to that.
So let's talk about this Dennis Rader a little bit. So his job that he lost was he working on airplanes?
Well, I think he lost several jobs.
Well, he went through several.
Yes.
But I think that was supposedly his dream job, and he had lost that job. And so he thought he'd take up another hobby. And according to him, his desire to get into this whole bondage and killing started when he was a kid. And Marissa's over there with a big grin on her face.
Well, because some of these are...
Read them. The people need to know.
Yeah. The Wichita Strangler, the Poetic Strangler, the Asphyxiator. I like that one.
The Asphyxiator.
The Garrote Phantom.
Yes, that was the one I was trying to think of.
You couldn't do that one because nobody knows what a garrote is.
I know. The Garrote Phantom.
The Bondage Strangler, the Wichita Hangman, and then what he put on his letters, Bill Thomas Kilman.
Is that it?
Well, and then Hap Kakaman was another alias he had on a postcard, and then Ethan Truman.
Ethan Truman?
Ethan Truman. An alias referenced in his letters.
He was a narcissist.
Oh, he was.
And he was like, well, these are the names I've picked out, and this is what I suggest you call me.
We'll be right back.
Not only are many trying to remove us from our constitutionally limited Judeo-Christian ethos republic, more seem to be forgetting our Judeo-Christian Christitutionalist foundations. Not here at Christitutionalist. We talk about all these things. The past, the present, the future. Biblical community, Judeo-Christian ethos, the whole Bible, biblical community, not worldly communism. And there is a big difference. Join us, Christitutionalists.
He has to be one of the oddest. I don't even know how to describe.
I don't either.
From between watching his videos, which I would encourage everybody to look at, to watch the video where he's confessing to the judge or giving details on his crimes, just because it is probably one of the oddest things that I've listened to. And later on, I might just play a clip just so people get an idea. But I would definitely suggest that people take a look at that.
I mean, he was proud. He was proud.
He was proud. Mm-hmm. And odd because it's like I don't know that he really considered anybody that he killed like a human. I mean,
Yeah.
They were objects. They were projects. He referred to them.
Yeah.
They were his projects.
So one of the documentaries that I watched, and I think you guys watched it too, was The Confessions of a Serial Killer. And it was based off of the book written by the psychologist Catherine Ramsland. And she's actually a known psychologist for actually studying serial killers and their motives and their demeanor and just kind of what makes them tick. And she's actually the one that the Idaho 4, Brian Koberger, was studying under.
Really? Mm-hmm. Oh, that was one of the. Is it somebody they idolized or someone that he?
She was doing like seminars, and Brian Koberger was studying underneath of her.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that's where he was getting all of his information. So, did you ever watch the movie Copycat?
No. I can't say as I had. Which actually, that's what BTK was. So he idolized all of these other serial killers.
Yes.
And he studied them.
So,
And apparently wanted to be one.
Watch the movie Copycat. It's older. It's probably early 90s, mid 90s. It's got Sigourney Weaver in it. And it's about a copycat killer. And the basis of this was this doctor, this psychologist that studied serial killers, and she would go and do these seminars, and then the copycat killer ended up attacking her. That's the basis of the movie, but it's totally correlates to the BTK, his story basically, and then this actual physician that was studying him had several interviews with him, and questioned him, and he was very open and honest with her, and really laid out what he was thinking, and even going back to his childhood and what gave him these thoughts and these desires, and very, very interesting.
Well, let's get into Dennis Rader a little bit. So
Yeah.
His murders took place in Wichita, Kansas, and they spanned from 1974 all the way through 1991, and I believe did not go solved until, was it 2004, 2005?
Yeah, 2005. I think that's when they finally caught him.
And so his first was the Otero family, and there was a family of 4 that he killed, but I think there was a total of 7 in the family because there was 3 kids that did not get killed. And that was in January of 1974. And what he did is he would scout these people out. And I can't remember what he called it, but
Prowling.
It was projects.
Well, yeah, he called them projects, but he said he would prowl.
Yeah, he had stages.
Yeah, he'd prowl and stalk and
so on the Otero family, when he finally that was his project, that's what he picked, that's what he's going to do. So he noticed it kind of had a big backyard, and the house was set away from the neighbors a little bit. And so he's going to go in through the backyard, the back door. And I think as he's coming in through the door, one of the kids is coming out. Does that sound right?
I can't remember.
I think it is. And then he kind of pushed his way in, and I don't think he really expected everybody to be home, because I think that he only expected maybe the mom or the wife to be home.
Right. For his maiden voyage, so to speak, on his murders, I think he was just intending to kill the woman. He had spotted her and was watching her, kind of stalking her, took interest in her. But when he actually went to go do it, turns out her husband was in a motor vehicle accident and was injured, and so he was home from work. And I'm not sure why the 2 kids were home.
I don't recall
But
that.
they were in elementary school,
Yeah, they were younger,
like 9 and 11.
9 and 11.
Yeah.
So there was the husband, which was Joseph. The wife is Julie. The 11-year-old daughter was Josephine. And then Joseph Jr. was the 9-year-old boy. And those were the three that were in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And he strangled, kind of his MO is he strangled almost everybody. There was one that he didn't later on, but on these here, he would put bags over their head and strangle them.
This one, he was kind of a fumbling idiot with this one.
He was.
He didn't know what he was doing.
And he would strangle one. I think he strangled Joseph Sr. first, and he thought he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
So then he went to the wife, Julie,
Mm-hmm.
and strangled her and thought she was dead.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out neither one of them were dead.
Right.
So I hope I got this order right. Or then maybe after Julie, then he strangled Joseph Jr., thought he was dead.
And then by that time, the dad
revived. So then he had to go back and do the dad again.
And then by that time, the mother was
revived. So then he had to go do that one again.
Just to back up a little bit, the first thing he did so that he was able to do all this is he had bound them and tied them up.
Yeah.
Because you think, well, if they're waking up, then how is he going back to each one of them? But they were tied up, so they couldn't get away. They couldn't go anywhere.
Which is really crazy if you could imagine rounding up a family of 4 and being able to tie everybody up. And he might have maybe had them tie each other up a little bit, at least to bind them so they couldn't move. But then he would go through and do his own knots and his own tying and his own bondage, I guess, in a way.
He said in his interviews that he would get some kind of rapport with them, and he'd say, well, I just need some money. I'm just going to rob you, but I got to tie you up. And he would try to schmooze them into cooperating. And he would tell them like this, he would, get them to like him a little bit, get them to like him. And they would cooperate thinking they were going to be let go. And that was not his intent at all. But that's kind of how he got to where he got, is he would
the other
make them trust him.
And it's funny you say that, because while his intent was to kill everybody there. Mm-hmm. But he had discovered that Joseph Sr. had been in a car accident and he had a bad back.
Yeah.
And so he went and got a pillow and maybe even like a parka or something to lay Joseph Sr. on to make him more comfortable.
Yeah, and this whole time he said, I was such a nice guy, such a thoughtful, nice guy that I did this for him. I got him a pillow. And
actually, I think what he's doing is throughout this is he's trying to not to make them feel better. I think he's trying to make himself feel better.
He's trying. Yes, that's totally it. He's just wants in some way to justify that he's a good guy. I mean, and he even said that in his last interview. I'm a good guy. I just did bad things.
Yeah.
I'm a good guy.
He tries to separate himself from the person that's actually in the house.
And he does say that in his interviews, that he compartmentalized himself from his actions, and he named it cubing. This guy had a lot of different names for everything he did. He was very organized, and he came up with different phrases and names and all this stuff for how he functioned, basically. He was a very interesting guy.
So he finally, I think the first person he actually killed in this instance was Joseph Sr. And after he had finally killed Joseph, and then he goes to do Julie a second time. And while he's strangling Julie or suffocating her, she asked him to spare her son, Joseph Jr., which he said that he felt that as, I don't know if he said touching or whatnot, but he did continue to finish off Julie. But then he moved Joseph Jr. to a different bedroom. Mm-hmm. And in that bedroom, Then he strangled and suffocated and killed Joseph Jr. And then after that, he returned because he still had Josephine, who's an 11-year-old daughter. But he didn't kill her upstairs with everybody else. Instead, he moved her down to the basement. And that's where he ultimately hung her and removed her pants, stripped her from the waist down. And then while she was hanging, and this is really, I probably found this the most disturbing because he seems to be more of a pedophile, because he then had his sexual fantasy with an 11-year-old girl as she was hanging there, and that excited him, which I find to be probably the grossest thing.
It wasn't because she was young. It was because of the hanging. Because in his interviews, his very first sexual experience, is what he called it, was himself getting off when he was asphyxiating himself. It didn't have anything to do with her being a child. It was the hanging. That was his sexual excitement. It was all hanging. He said in his interviews that from a kid, things that would excite him were picturing his teachers being tied up. The cartoon Dudley Do-Right. Do you remember that one?
I don't.
Dudley Do-Right?
The name, but not the...
Okay, Dudley Do-Right, he was always trying to rescue Nell. Nell was like the pretty girl that was always getting tied up on the railroad tracks.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that aroused him.
I think didn't he get aroused by tying up animals too?
Yes. That's what his whole sexuality was about bondage. Every person that he killed, he never actually raped.
No, because he had a standard.
Well, and his release was seeing them hung, or he would masturbate while they were hanging, or them being tied up. He never actually raped any of them.
I think that he said that he got off on seeing their fear in their face.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he would hang cats. He said he hung rabbits. Cats were particular important to him because the way their face mimicked a female face is how he described it. Something about their eyes, their smile, the cat's smile, their eyes, it resembled a female face. And so that's why he liked to torture cats. He really did have a thing about torturing females that had some kind of authority over him or some kind of aggression over him. So anybody that was mean to him, he really fantasized about torturing them and tying them up. He found detective magazines in his dad's car, and that was sexually arousing to him because he would see females being tied up or blindfolded or in some kind of predicament, and then that's sexually aroused him. It was all of this bondage stuff. Very bizarre.
He's very sick.
Yes.
Very sick. So his first time out, he kills 4 people.
Yeah.
Leaves the house. They're ultimately discovered by the 3 children. The first, I think the next 2 are the next 2 youngest, and they were teenagers. They come home from school. They found that I think they couldn't get into the back door. I can't recall. They did notice their dog was outside, which they thought was unusual, but they're the ones that went inside. They initially discovered only their mom and their dad. Mm-hmm. And so they ran out. And when police arrived, the police discovered then Joseph Jr. and then ultimately discovered Josephine in the basement.
Yeah.
And this was, This was in Wichita, Kansas, which back in the time was it was the biggest city in Kansas, but cities in the Midwest are small compared to what you're going to see out in the East Coast and West Coast and in some of these more populated states. So later that year, then April 4th, a few months later, he takes on another project. And this one is Catherine Bright. And in Catherine's, he stabbed her. And I think his intent... So his intent on Catherine, I think this is the one where he knocked on the door, and I don't think he expected
Her brother
to be there.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I can't remember if he was hiding in the house or if he knocked on the door, but regardless, it's Catherine and her brother, which he didn't expect. And so he actually had the brother, which is Kevin, tie up Catherine. And then he was going to tie up Kevin. So he actually gets them both tied up. He goes in, he tells the brother that he wants money. The brother hands him like $3 or something to that effect. And then he goes in and he's talking to Catherine, doing the same thing. I'm just here for money. Same thing that he told the Oteros. Hey, I'm a wanted person. I just need some money in a car. So then after he talks to Catherine, he comes back to Kevin. Well, Kevin is getting out of his bonds. He's getting himself untied, and a fight ensues. And Dennis has a gun with him. And so he pulls this gun out, the wrestler with the gun, he ends up shooting him. I think he ultimately shoots him twice.
Yes.
But Kevin then plays dead. And a matter of fact, I think in one of the reports I read, Kevin stated that he was laying on the ground, and Dennis was actually kind of kicking him to see if he was still alive. And he just continued to play dead. And that's when he moved back in to return to Catherine. And Kevin at that time, he ran out the door. He bailed. And so when Dennis realized that, oh shit, he got away, he needs to make quick work of Catherine, so he actually stabs her.
Yeah.
And killed, and I'm not sure on this one here, I'm not sure that she died right away. But anyway, so he panics, and then he takes off. So, and I think this is the only one that he stabbed. And more because, once again, his plan was just went south on him.
That's not what excited him. His ultimate motivation was to bind them, to tie them up, and to see them tortured. Like, that is what sexually excited him. And that's ultimately, he didn't want to kill. He wanted this sexual gratification, and part of that was this tying them up and seeing them afraid. And stabbing just wasn't his MO.
And he did have her bound up. As a matter of fact, he even had something around her neck. And I remember now, because when law enforcement arrived, she couldn't talk. I think there was some damage to her throat. But the officer asked her where she hurt, and she actually pulled her blouse up and revealed stab wounds. Mm-hmm. So law enforcement's trying to slow down the bleeding and get EMS on the way. And they rushed her to the hospital. By this time, Kevin had already been picked up by a neighbor who called law enforcement. And that neighbor, I think, took Kevin to the hospital. So they're both being treated. And when law enforcement is at the hospital with Catherine, she's still alive at that time. And they're trying to ask questions. And she died, I think, during surgery.
Yeah, and I think at this point, he wore a ski mask. He wasn't
wearing a mask at this one because she actually described him.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think he was described as I think Kevin actually described him as maybe like 5'9", kind of husky with a mustache. But, and I think that maybe this is where the early drawings maybe even came from, which I don't know if you've seen the early drawings, but when I saw those sketches like that, doesn't look like him at all, really. It almost looked Asian.
Yeah, I don't remember if I saw it or not. I just have his mugshot ingrained in my brain.
Oh,
But,
yeah. I just, the only thing I really, when I picture Dennis Rader now is just when he was in court.
yeah.
And he looks like my dad, actually. Yeah, that's not good.
Well, yeah, I just, Dennis is, I guess the fascinating part is how he lived this double life and how he was undetected and how he was this family man and was a leader in this church, and then was able to, like I said earlier, compartmentalize this other life and what he was doing. But I guess, because of that, he was dangerous. He was so dangerous. Like the whole town, the whole city of Wichita was terrified because there really wasn't any rhyme or reason.
No,
Or who, I still don't really understand how he picked his victims. The only thing that I heard him say was that routine. He picked people that had a routine that he could predict what their routine was going to be. If it was somebody that didn't really have a routine, then that wasn't who he was going to pick. And then he said he also would pick people that lived on maybe corner lots. But otherwise, here you have a couple males. It's not female only, although that was kind of what his intent was. But, I mean, if a male was there, he was going to off them too. So, I don't know.
well, it was after the second go-around. Because law enforcement at this time, they have no suspects. They have no nothing. And we're talking early 70s. I'm not sure what the technology was back then, but they didn't have DNA testing. Maybe had fingerprints, but I'm pretty sure he wore gloves, so he never really left any fingerprints.
Right. We should mention that kind of his trademark is he would take a glass from the cupboard and he'd take a drink of water after each one, and then he'd wipe the glass and put it back. And then that was just kind of his little secret that he was taking a drink of water or a glass of water.
See, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. He would take a glass and get himself a drink of water. He'd always kind of clean up the house and clean up after himself, so to speak. But the thing that he left at every one, I believe, was his semen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that he left his semen in
Not
this.
that one.
And but after that, yeah. And of course, back then, without DNA testing, he probably didn't even think about that. Matter of fact, I think after he went through a few murders, he started to believe that he was smarter than law enforcement.
Yeah.
So he's getting pretty cocky. And later on, this is going to bite him in the ass.
Yeah, because it pissed him off that he wasn't getting recognized.
No. And it was actually after
media.
this second one is when he contacted the media and said, hey, I left a note in a book in the public library.
Did that correlate with the cereal box that he left by the stop sign?
That would have been later on.
Okay.
That would have been it was either in the 80s or the 90s. This one here, he just left a note in a book. And this is when he named himself.
Yeah. Yes. In reading his letter, he sounds like an idiot. His grammar is terrible. His spelling is terrible.
He also, I think, so I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. So that note that he left was for the Wichita Eagle and Beacon newspaper. And that's where he named himself the BTK for the bind them, torture them, kill them. And he was also upset because law enforcement had 3 people in custody that they thought had committed some of these murders. And he wanted to let them know, oh, no. It wasn't those dudes. I did this all by myself.
And then he proceeded to describe the scene and how he left them and this, that, and the other. Like, he made a full description.
And he was pretty proud of it because a couple of things that I noted, he described Joseph Jr. was suffocated with the old bag trick. And he also mentioned that Otero's missing watch, I needed one, so I took it. Runs good.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, just something. So, but he takes a break after that. So that was in 74, and he didn't kill again until 1977.
Yeah, and he said it just was for circumstances, I think.
Yeah, that might have been that.
He was busy. His wife had their children and was busy raising a family, and he just didn't have time. But he still had fantasies, and he'd still act them out in his mind, and he'd still go and plan, but he just didn't really have time to fully act it out.
And I think during one of his interviews, he described how it was kind of like a drug addict, where he would kind of get his fix, and he was good for a while, but then it would build, and it would build, and it would build. And even though he would do things to himself to kind of get himself by, eventually he would just have to have that release.
Can we talk about that?
Talk about?
Doing things to himself.
Go ahead.
This man, this dude, would dress himself up in women's lingerie, pantyhose, full makeup, whatnot, and then tie himself up, asphyxiate himself, and he also rigged up a Polaroid camera to take pictures of himself. And then he would masturbate to these pictures of himself dressed up and bound. Because the police, when they finally caught him, they asked him, who are these male victims in your photographs? And he's like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, and the mask he would wear, they were like porcelain masks.
Oh, creepy. Just
they were
creepy.
They reminded me of like 1970s Halloween masks.
Oh,
like
yes.
That's
Creepy.
that nasty smell in plastic. Like you can smell it.
I don't know. The pictures are
They're
really
creepy. And he said he perfected, tying himself up. He would get himself to a point where he would just about pass out, and then he'd release the knots, or he'd release the rope, and he perfected it in a way that he'd get himself off, basically, because this is how he would have a sexual release, is by asphyxiation.
I can't remember, but he actually had a nickname for his penis.
Sparky.
Was it Sparky?
Yep. Oh, Sparky. Yeah.
This guy's terrible at nicknames.
Yep.
You can come up with the asphyxiator. Sparky.
Oh, God.
Well, and so, yeah, and he got in trouble from his mom because, so going back to kind of the original story I was telling you, he had this teacher that he would stalk his teachers, and he would spy on his teachers, some that he had a crush on and one that he didn't like, that was mean to him. That's the one that he would picture tying up and torturing. He actually made it, and he was young, I don't know, 11-ish age, and he went to her backyard, took some ropes, and he was picturing, he's like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to tie her up. And in actuality, that's when he decided he was in her backyard, and he tied himself up. And then that's how he discovered that he was sexually aroused by binding himself, however you describe it, tying himself up. And then he actually had a release. And then he got home and his mom found the evidence in his underwear and punished him for it and said, boys who masturbate die, basically. It's a sin, and boys who do that die. And so scolded him a lot. And then that's kind of where he had a little animosity from his mother or towards his mother, because his mother was punishing him for those type of actions. It snowballed from there.
He got caught by his wife a couple of times too.
Oh, yes, he did.
And his wife threatened to leave him. And I think that what it was is when he would have these, his time when he was by himself and he would dress himself up and tie himself up and, you know, have his fantasies and whatnot, his wife came home unexpected and caught him.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I thought was odd is I think that, if I remember right, he was caught kind of later on by his wife. And with all of this stuff going on in town, and maybe it's one of those deals where a wife just doesn't want to believe that maybe your husband is maybe the sick bastard that's doing this shit. Or if maybe, I mean, I don't know. But all she did was threaten to leave him, and I thought, Jesus.
He, I mentioned that he was a church leader. He would write the newsletters or the whatever for the church. And she was proofreading one of his letters for the church and said, my God, you cannot spell. You spell like the BTK killer.
Oh, yeah. Was that his wife or his daughter?
I think it was his wife, but maybe it was his daughter. I thought it was his wife, but.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
Oops.
Well, so let's go to 77 then. So in 77, that was Shirley Vane. And Shirley was, she was actually homesick. And she'd sent one of her boys to the grocery store to get some soup. And her son, and her son's name is Stephen, actually ran into the BTK on the street or on the sidewalk. And he was going door to door, and he was dressed up in like a business type suit, and he had a briefcase. And he actually approached Stephen and said, hey, do you recognize the woman and the child in this picture that he had? And Stephen said, no, I don't know. And Stephen went about his business. Well, later on, he's at home with his mom, laying in bed with her, and there's a knock at the door. So he goes and answers the door. Same man as Dennis Rader. And Dennis once again pushes himself into the house. And this is where he takes the children, and I think initially he had them all in the bedroom, but he moved the kids then into the bathroom and kind of barricaded and locked them into the bathroom. But he was, once again, nice enough. He threw in some toys and a pillow, and that way they would be comfortable, while he then went in and same MO, tied their mom up, was going through his whole fantasy process. But one of the kids broke the window out of the bathroom and bailed out and was running to a neighbor, going to call law enforcement. So I think at that time, Dennis Rader then he hurried up, finished the job, and then took off.
Yeah.
And this is the one, I think this is the one where the guy still does interviews today, or he's still in some of these documentaries.
Yeah, he's in the one of them, and the documentary I watched, looks like he's in rough shape, but which I'm sure you would be if you have that image burned in your brain. I mean, he looks like he's led a rough life. But he describes he was able to peek through the doorway at what he was doing to his mom.
I know in one of the interviews, I think that he said he felt bad because he answered the door, and I don't know that he let Rader come in or Rader pushed himself in, but one thing I can say is, had they not busted that window out and took off, they would have all been dead. Because Dennis Rader had later on, and I don't know if it was sometime in the following years, wrote another letter to the newspaper or law enforcement, and he described on how his intent was to kill the rest of those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe one of the kids was a little girl. And he described how he was going to do the same thing to that little girl that he did to Josephine.
Sick.
Very sick.
And you have a little girl. Like, you are a father to a little girl.
Well, I don't know if at this time he'd had a daughter yet. How old is his daughter? I think you can probably look that up. But I was thinking that maybe she was born either really late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, and I was listening to this book. I guess I didn't.
She was born in 78.
78. Okay, so these Shirley Vane, the one we just talked about, was 77.
She was born
And see, then didn't he kind of take a hiatus?
October.
He did. He had one more in 77, and that was Nancy Fox.
Sure, that was the young gal. She was like 25.
Yep, that's the one that he actually called that one in. He called law enforcement and said, hey, you're going to find a homicide at 843 South Pershing.
Because he was getting a little pissy that he wasn't getting any recognition.
Well, and I don't think anybody had found her yet either.
No, they hadn't, because law enforcement responded. They noticed that there was a window broken out, and they also noticed something else that was kind of one of his MOs is he liked to cut phone lines.
Yeah.
And so they noticed also that a phone line had been cut. But when law enforcement noticed the window was broken, he reached his arm and kind of pushed the curtain off to the side, and he noticed Nancy Fox, I think, face down in the bed. And so he'd called, I think, me a supervisor. His supervisor showed up and said, we got to break the door down. So they break the door down, and that's when they find Nancy face down, deceased, with her panties were pulled down to her thighs, and there was a blue nightgown next to her head where Dennis Rader had his release.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is he had a thing with textures. He liked silk and satin particularly because of the softness. There was some kind of fantasy. He described it that it reminded him of his grandma's ribbons that she would wear in her hair. There was this weird. It was just weird.
Well, there's nothing normal about this guy.
No, I mean, so like he would correlate that satin nightgowns and slips. Like he would steal this stuff from the women that he murdered. So he would steal their pantyhose. He would steal their silk underwear or satin nightgowns, dress slips, so that he could later, like, have relations with himself. How do I describe it later on? Because he said he would do more killing, but he was too busy playing with himself. And so he would steal all this stuff from women so that he could act out his sexual fantasies. And he did crazy stuff. He particularly liked magazine ads. He liked J.C. Penney and Sears ads, and he would cut them out. He would
drive around with them.
He would take these pictures of models and he'd put them on postcards, glue them to postcards, and he would name them as if they were like trading cards. And then he would create this story in his head, and then he'd have this slip from another woman, and like he had this weird scenario going on so that he could get off, basically. It's just bizarre.
Well, after he killed this Nancy Fox, after he had that victim, which I think was number 5 or 6, it was after this. It was in February of 78. That's when he sent the letter to KAKE television. And this would have been the, how many do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper or some national recognition? And he had some other things when I was reading one of the police reports. This is where he had made the comment, do the cop thinks that all those deaths, I think he was complaining that he thought that maybe the cops didn't know that all of these killings that he'd done were related.
Yeah, I think that's right. They didn't, because there was not, like, some of them were different.
And this is also where he mentioned that the children in the Shirley Vane killing were lucky to be alive, because he said that a phone call saved him, and he was going to tape up the boys and put plastic bags over their head, and he was going to hang the little girl. And he actually made the comment, one of the things he wrote, and this is pretty gross, it says, "God, oh God, what a beautiful sexual relief it would have been."
Mm-hmm.
And this would have been on the daughter of Shirley Vane. So he's still irritated because he's still not maybe getting the recognition that he thinks that he's deserved. And I suppose he's probably jealous because there's all of these serial killers that he's idolized since he was a kid, which is who he's trying to emulate. And he feels that he's not getting the recognition like they got recognition.
Yep. Just complete narcissist,
Yep.
So.
But this is also where he takes his big break,
Mm-hmm.
and which would make sense because you said that his daughter was born in
October of
78?
78.
Okay. So the letter he wrote to KAKE television talking about how many do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper, that was in February 78. And he actually didn't kill again until 1985. Now, there was a break-in in 1979. Was it Anna Williams? And they believe that she may have been one of the victims. However, she never came home. So, because she never came home, he wasn't able to, fulfill or do whatever he was wanting to do. But they did find that a window was broke out of her house, phone lines were cut, kind of his MO. And then after that, he had actually sent poems, because didn't he refer to himself as some sort of a poet? That was one of his nicknames.
Yeah, that was the poetic strangler.
The poetic strangler.
Yeah. So he then wrote poems about Anna.
Even though he couldn't spell or articulate or make any grammatically correct sentence.
So how many kids did he have? Did he have a daughter
2.
and a son?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because he was a scout leader then as well as a church leader.
Yeah, but his son wasn't. I don't think his son was ever in Scouts, to be honest.
Are you sure? I thought I heard that his son went on to be an Eagle Scout and got his
Maybe
Eagle Project or whatever you got to do to be.
He never, in the interviews, he never mentioned that his son was in Scouts. His reasoning for becoming a scout leader is because it made it easier for him to surveil people and to find his projects and also be looked at as a authority figure. I don't know. I mean, it could be. He just doesn't mention it. It's like another thing where he doesn't care about anybody else but himself. Like, he never mentioned anything about his son.
So he takes his break. And I think by 1985, I don't want to say he was forgotten about, but because it went such a long period of time with nothing happening, they thought, well, did this guy die? Mm-hmm. Did he move?
Yeah.
He's in prison.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
and usually that's the thing, is serial killers are in prison. They get caught for some of their crime, and that's why they take a break.
But then in April of 85, there was Marine Hedge. And with Maureen, she was supposed to have coffee with, I think, some friends or some coworkers, and she failed to show up. And the prior night, she'd been on a date with a Gerald Porter. And what Dennis did is he actually got into the house early, and he was going to hide in the closet. But when Maureen showed up, she had this Gerald Porter with her. So he had to stay hidden. And he hid in this closet for like an hour and a half until Gerald left, which was like 1 a.m. And then once Gerald left, he come out of the closet. He confronted Maureen. He had already cut the phone lines. And he killed her.
Yeah.
And I think this one he transported.
Yes. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, because they found her decomposing in a ditch. So I wonder.
This is the one that he took to the church and took pictures of. That's what his intent was. His intent was that he wanted pictures of her tied up because he wanted to fantasize about it later on. And he even said in his interview that if they would have, if her and her date stayed a while, if her and her date would have went to the bedroom, so to speak, then he would have killed both of them. But luckily, they didn't have that kind of night, and her date left. And so, but otherwise, he said, if this would have happened, I would have done this, basically. And he spelled out how he would have killed him and her both.
Yeah, but I think he strangled her in the house, and then he actually transported her in her car.
Yes.
To the church, did his photography, and then took her and he dumped her in a ditch. And I think this is the first, well, this was the first person that he killed that he dumped the body outside of the house. So she was found later on in the ditch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, they asked him if he felt bad about, he took her to a classroom and he did all this photography and posing of her and undressing her and all this stuff, and asked if he felt bad that he did it in his church, and he's like, not really. It was just a perfect spot to do it because nobody would catch me and nobody was going to be there, and basically he felt really safe doing it there. Like he didn't have any remorse whatsoever that he was doing it in the church.
I don't think he ever had any remorse about anything ever.
No.
The only time he ever felt bad was maybe he felt bad for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he never felt bad for anybody else. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure he felt bad for any of his own family.
Right. We kind of know Dennis's MO and kind of what he's done.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and talk about his daughter and his family. Is that okay?
Yeah.
We can move on. So his daughter just did a documentary series and where she kind of spoke about being the daughter of Dennis Rader, and kind of how their family life was. And he was kind of a manipulator to the family, even though she described him as being kind of her best friend and they did a lot of things together. And he was kind of a good dad, so to speak. But then he also had this other side to him where he would just flip a switch and he would be pissed off for stupid reasons. But recently, there's now questions of whether he was actually sexually molesting her.
See, I think I'd heard something about that, but I don't remember hearing any details. Is that something that she's alleging, or is this?
Well, she doesn't know. She has these recurring nightmares, and her nightmares are pretty specific, and I can't remember all the details of what she described what her nightmares were. But now she's going to therapy and trying to figure out if he was actually doing some of these things to her.
Well, didn't she talk about finding some type of letter or little skit thing that he had?
Yes.
He had written up about her, I
That's-
think, when she was like 3 or 4-ish.
Yes, he had, because he was, again, very organized. He kept all these files. He itemized everything. He alphabetized everything. All of his projects that were his murders, he described. Like, this guy was destined to be caught because he had everything written down of what he did. But yes, there was a file with his daughter's name on it, and she confronted him in the jail. She went to jail and confronted him about it, and that's when his mood switched, and then he became very manipulative and aggressive towards her. And she basically didn't get any answers from him. And that's when she vowed she was never going to speak to him again. Because ultimately, up until this point, she kind of had some correlation with him. Like, she would talk to him and send letters to him about 3 times a year. They would write back and forth and exchange letters. But after this, after she confronted him about possibly being sexually abused, and the way his demeanor switched, she said, nope, I'm not talking to him anymore. So now she's in this kind of self-journey of trying to figure out through therapy and maybe hypnotization of whether this actually happened or not.
I don't know. I'm not sure that I would want to know. I mean, maybe I've never.
This girl, I don't know how old she is now. I mean, she's an adult, but she's
47.
She's a strong woman.
Well, she had to live a life after her dad was caught, being basically known as nothing more than the daughter of the BTK killer.
Yeah.
And that'd be a terrible way to live your adult life, is only being known not for who you are, but for who your dad was.
Yeah, and you don't hear anything about his wife. I think she purposely does not, do interviews or speak out about it at all.
Or the son.
But
Well,
the
I probably
daughter
wouldn't
has.
either.
And the daughter actually was the one who consulted with the family of Rex Heuermann.
It was. Yeah.
And she only spoke out because Stephen King was writing a book and kind of using the BTK as his muse, and she was pissed. How dare you
That's
use
right.
my dad and my mom and my family as this book? And then that's when she started doing her interviews.
So she was speaking out about it.
Yeah.
And this is what really happened, and this is my side. Gotcha. Yeah, I do remember that. Mm-hmm. I think her name's Carrie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just...
So there is one funny thing that I wanted to mention, and that was how he got caught.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about that.
So,
We need to talk about that.
So mind you, this guy started killing people in 1974. He killed people throughout the 70s, through the 80s, and I think he killed 1 or 2 people in the 90s. I think
Just one.
just one.
Yeah.
In 91.
He said circumstances kind of would prevent him from killing, and also now his age, because he's getting a little older, and it's harder for him to pull these things off.
So he started actually kind of sending letters to the newspaper, almost like he was writing a book about himself, maybe going into some details. But what happened is he actually, in one of his letters or one of his notes to law enforcement, said, hey, if I send you a disc, could you track this? And then he followed up with, now be honest.
Now, come on
It
now.
reminded me of a prostitute. Are you a cop? You have to tell me. Are you a cop?
Because if you're a cop, you have to tell me if you're a cop.
Now, come on. Just
So-
be honest with me. Are you going to be able to trace where this is coming from?
So, of course, law enforcement says, no, we couldn't track that now. And so the dipshit sends a disc,
A floppy disk.
a floppy disk. And the first thing they do is they send this floppy disk in. They do some forensics and find out that the disk had been used in a church computer under the login or under the name Dennis.
Yep.
So now one thing I will say is law enforcement was smart enough back in the day that they collected fluid. So when he would leave his semen behind at scenes, even though at that time they didn't have the technology to do DNA stuff, they had the smarts to collect it anyway. And eventually, when DNA came along, they were able to get a DNA analysis. So when Rader had sent this disc to law enforcement and they tracked it back to him, then they were able to get Dennis's DNA, and sure shit.
No, it was the DNA of his daughter.
Oh,
Right,
yes,
because
that's right.
they're like, okay, so
How do we get this?
they were trying to figure out, okay, now we got this guy named Dennis. Who's Dennis? So they looked up Dennis, and then they thought, well, how are we going to get his DNA to see to compare it to this seminal fluid? And they found his daughter's
Medical records.
through Kansas State University. She had a pap smear done.
That's right.
And they were able to compare and determine that she was the offspring of this semen.
What blew my mind was how in 1970s, when he started sending in the letters, how they were able to trace it back to the Xerox machine that he was using to make copies. I'm like,
Yes.
mind blown.
He was going into the library and using, I think, a copy machine in the library.
And one at there was another one on the college somewhere too.
And it had some kind of, I don't know, defect in it or something, that they were able to compare the defect in this copy machine to the letters that he was sending.
I suppose it would be the etching or like the scratches that would get in the glass.
That's what was crazy to me.
You know, when I saw that, I was kind of surprised by that too, because that's something I would have never thought. Now I do know that back in the day they could trace like typewriter letters back to a specific typewriter, but I would have never thought, because what he would do is he would type these letters out, then he would make copies
of them,
and then send the copies in. But I would have never thought to say, you know, I wonder if we can trace this back to a Xerox. And maybe it's because when I was in law enforcement, you know, everybody had emails. But I would have never
there
thought.
was newer technology when you were in law enforcement.
But I'm sure people still make copies, but I would have never thought, hey, we should take this copy and see if we can match it up to the Xerox or the copy machine that it was actually made from. Not even thinking that, you know, the little scratches and things like that in the glass are going to be specific. Much like with a gunshot, when you shoot, you know, when the bullet comes out of the barrel, it leaves striations in the bullet that only match that barrel. Basically the same thing with the copy machine.
Yeah, he tried to be a little bit sneaky in some instances where he would steal like the Polaroid film. Like he would steal that, so that way there was no traces of him purchasing Polaroid film.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And there was a few things that he stole because he didn't want it to be traced back to him that he was purchasing it. So he was kind of a little klepto, like he would steal stuff. And then he just, at the very end, he was like, you guys lied to me. Why'd you lie? And then he's like, and I can't believe you guys kept my semen for that many years. Like, who would do that? Who would keep semen for that long?
You probably would, you sicko.
He was just like dumbfounded that they kept his semen. And they lied. They lied.
Damn
You're
cops.
cops. You're not supposed to lie. And you
Damn
lied.
cops.
Or him. Well, can you tell my wife that I won't be home for lunch? I'm guessing you know where
Jesus.
I live.
He really is a strange, you know, and I guess every serial killer is strange and weird, but just, I mean, I'm still, every time I listen to his courtroom talk with the judge, when he's telling the judge, you know, giving him the details, every time I watch that, I feel the same way. It's like it still, I don't know if I want to say surprises me, but I watch it and it's like I just, maybe it's because I'm normal and I wouldn't go out and, kill people and do what he did. But I see his demeanor. It's like, it just doesn't even faze him. It's like he's talking about, it'd be like if Marissa said, so what did you do at work today? Well, I went and I put some freight away, or I had some work to do in the office. And that's kind of how he talked about when he would kill people.
That's why it's so odd, because you look at the Ted Bundys or the Jeffrey Dahmers, and Ted Bundy was charismatic, but he was still maybe, I don't know, a little off where people could say something ain't right with him.
Yeah.
Whereas Dennis Rader, he was just he fooled a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. His life outside of,
and I think
when
that's
he was committing
why
his crimes was just perfectly normal.
Yeah, not a suspect, and he had jobs where he would. I don't want to say he was an authority figure, because he never was that high up in his positions, his jobs. But it was always something that maybe he had some sense of authority over people. Like he was he worked for the Census Bureau, and he would go around and collect data and stuff from people. So he kind of had an in to people's lives. And he actually worked for ADT Security, and he would install security systems into people's homes. Like that, those kind of things are just...
Well, he ultimately had, it wasn't a law enforcement position, which he did apply. He applied to be a police officer in Wichita, but he ended up working, and a deputy.
And State Patrol. He applied to all three of them.
Yeah. But he wound up, what was his job title? It was almost like animal control or nuisance.
Yeah.
But it was also like with your grass, compliance. Was it a compliance officer?
A compliance officer, nuisance officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what he was doing when he was ultimately arrested. I think he was a compliance officer for...
Yeah, because he had remembered hearing on the police scanner that the FBI was in town, and kind of was hearing some chatter and thinking,
oh,
crap,
they're coming for me.
Is that for me? And then ultimately he was caught.
Yeah.
But his wife must have been the most meekest, mildest,
gullible.
Like you had said when we were watching the documentary, I know everything in every spot of this garage in our house. The shed that was always locked. As a wife, why would you not be what the fuck's in the shed? Why is it always locked?
He hid a lot of that stuff in their bedroom.
Yeah.
In his hidey holes.
Yes, in his hidey holes.
I don't even have a hidey hole.
No. I have to tell you a lot of times where things are at.
Yeah.
As the wife of the house, you...
Well, let me ask you this. If you came home and your husband was wearing women's clothing and had themselves half tied up, to get more weird yet, I'm fairly certain the women's clothing that he was wearing were not hers. So at what point would you say, I wonder what the fuck is out in that shed? Or I wonder what's in these places that he goes that I never go.
That's what I'm saying.
Would you never be suspicious? And it makes you wonder, did she not want to know?
That, or there's relationships where the man is completely manipulative, and if he's a narcissist, he may have such a hold on her and lie to her so much that she could have no self-esteem whatsoever, and she believes everything he says because he's that manipulative. And there are women out there that...
Rex's wife.
Yes. There are women that are just completely buffaloed, and think that their spouses always got the authority and listen to him, and I mean, that's not me, but
Oh, I was just going to say, I can imagine someone like Jamie walking into her husband dressed up in women's clothing. And I doubt the conversation would go something like, if I ever see you dressed like that again and doing that again, I will leave. It would be near that quiet. You're like, what in the
if I ever
actual...
see that again from you, I'm going to have to file for divorce. Oh, God. Oh, please. Let me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Or even, I couldn't imagine. Well, I
However,
can't imagine myself in women's clothing anyway, but like if my wife were to walk in and say, I'd be like, I just can't picture somebody walking in, a spouse, and not just totally flipping the fuck out.
Oh.
Be like, what in the actual fuck is going on here?
However, in her defense, she did, as soon as he was arrested, she did file for an immediate divorce. I think they had some special name for it, emergency divorce or something to where it was expedited within days. Like it was the fastest divorce in history. There was a special term for it, but
I don't know. I'm just...
like she completely like absolved her marriage and was like, yeah, I'm not having anything to do with him. And she never then spoke about it. I suppose because of, the stigma. And how could you live with him and not know? And, they did ask the daughter that, which I think a daughter would be different. I mean, feel like he could hide a lot of things from the daughter. They've got they're teenagers. They've got their own life. They're doing their own thing. They're not supposed to snoop in their parents' stuff. I feel like that could easily be done. But, she's like, for the most part, he was just a normal dad. He came to my activities and he taught me how to drive and he did all this stuff for me. He was like a normal dad.
I don't know. I'm still picturing him tying himself up, wearing women's clothing, and his wife walking to the door, and him just sitting there like this.
With his mask on.
Do you freeze? And act like if I don't move, they can't see
honey.
me?
Don't mind me.
I was just getting ready to watch the ball game.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, if you guys want some entertainment, go look up those pictures of old Dennis Rader.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly. I didn't know that, and truly, I did not know that. I didn't know any of that information before now.
Oh, I didn't either.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh. Oh, anyway.
He's a sick man.
Is he still alive?
I
believe so.
I believe so. Oh, there's dogs.
So he was arrested in 2005. And, that's not really that long ago.
No, it's not.
And he was how old? He was in his 50s? Or was he 60 by then?
Well, he was in his late 20s when he started, I think when he killed his first person.
He is still
No,
alive.
but I want to know when he was.
80 years old.
I want to know how old he was when he was caught.
Okay.
Oh, what?
When he was caught.
Oh. Well, if he was caught in 2005, he's 80 now, and that would have been 20 years ago. 60?
So, yeah, because in his interviews, in this book, he talks about, okay, I'm 46 now, and things are slowing down because I'm getting older. He mentions his age. So, yeah, so he's 60.
Marissa, you finding anything?
Well, I mean, doing the math, he'd be 60.
60. We'll say 60.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
interesting.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, but I feel like, we're in October. We should have been doing a Halloween series and showcasing all the serial killers.
Yeah, what are we going to do on the next one?
I don't know. We could do another one.
Nope, that won't be it.
What are you talking about?
Well, aren't we doing a special Halloween episode?
Well, I think we have to.
Are we going to have it air on Halloween?
What do you
I
think?
don't care.
We can have it here. When is Halloween? Well, I know what day it is.
Friday. I think it's Friday, isn't it?
Next Friday.
So it's next Friday.
Well, yeah. So we have this week and then next Friday.
Okay. So
Not like this coming Friday. Next Friday.
So 2 weeks.
If anybody is listening or watching, I don't know if you're going to have the video out, but if anybody's listening, reach out to us and let us know who you want to do between now and Halloween. Because I think we have our Halloween episode picked out, right?
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
Another weirdo.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay, till
that's all
next
I
time.
got. Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Let you wanna talk.